From the bayou to the Rocky Mountains and the depths of the Pacific to the sandbars of New England, this is Boat Trader's Stomping Grounds. From small bass boats to giant offshore titans and everything in between, boaters across America show us why they love their boat and exactly what makes it the perfect vessel for their neck of the woods. In this episode, we travel to the coast of Maine to explore the many seaside towns, deep harbors, and quaint ports that make up one of the country's most popular boating regions. With a vast 3,500-mile coastline that includes over 4,000 islands and 65 lighthouses, this area is famous for its wild, windswept beaches and untamed scenery. Known as Vacation Land, the state's many picturesque fishing villages and rocky shores capture the famous Downeast lifestyle charm, quietly preserving its rich heritage as one of the meccas of wooden boat building in the United States. Here, it feels like you can step back in time, and around every turn, find yourself immersed in a simpler way of life from a bygone era.
Hey everyone, it's Ryan and welcome back to another episode of Stomping Grounds. I'm here in Ellsworth, Maine, quaint New England town near Acadia National Park. And today we're going to check out boat culture along the Maine coast. Wooden boat building is big in Maine, as is sailing, windjammers, also of course Downeast style boats, lobster boats. So let's go investigate and see what we find out.
Our plan was to meet up with marine journalist Marilyn DiMartini, who was in town filming an episode of Factory Fridays for Boats.com.
Hey Marilyn.
Hey Ryan, how are you?
Good, how's it going?
It's great. Don't you love Ellsworth, Maine?
Yeah, it's such a cool town, I like it.
It really is.
So tell everyone what we're gonna go check out today.
We're heading a little south to Brooklin, Maine, the wooden boat building capital of the country, and we're gonna see some really special boats there, so let's hit it.
Let's hit it.
So our crew Scott and Amy followed Marilyn and I south, down the road to Brooklyn, along a beautiful coastal drive.
Our first stop today here is at the Brooklin Boat Yard behind me. 3/4 of the boats in this harbor are wooden boats built here at this factory. It's really cool to see. American craftsmanship alive and well.
Owned and operated by Steve White, the grandson of celebrated American author E.B. White, who penned such classics as Charlotte's Web and Stuart Little. The facility sits on the water's edge on the Eggemogan Reach between Blue Hill and Penobscot Bay. Steve took over the boatyard from his father Joel White and maintains a full-service yard specializing in wooden boat design, construction, repair, and maintenance.
Steve, we're so excited to be here. How about if you show us around?
Sure, come on in.
Boat building is in the DNA for the Whites. Steve's grandfather once wrote, "Waking or sleeping, I dream of boats, seductive and full of strange promise and the hint of trouble. The most compact and ingenious arrangement for living ever devised by the restless mind of man. A home that is stable without being stationary, in which the homeowner can remove his daily affairs as far from shore as he has the nerve to take them."
Well, come on in. This is my office here at Brooklin Boat Yard.
Corner office. I
Yes,
love it.
yep, the president's office. It used to be my dad's office when he was designing. This boatyard used to be a sardine canning factory back in the late 1800s.
And there's a history of all of this on the walls around
There's,
us.
if you look around, yes, you'll see there's a story behind every picture and every half model and everything like that. We've been building new boats every year, anywhere from 1 to 3, 4, or 5 boats per year, depending on the size of the boats. We've got about 60 people that work here at the boatyard now.
In front of me is a 38 Wheeler. It's an exact reverse engineered reproduction of Ernest Hemingway's boat. It's called Legend. Let's go take a look. Hello. Nice to meet you.
Wes and Marianne Wheeler of Wheeler Yacht Company invited us aboard hull number 1 of the newly relaunched 38 to tell us a bit more about their project and bringing this famous boat with so much history back to life in a newer, more modern form. We sat down to chat with them aboard this stunning yacht and they were very gracious hosts, with a full spread of hors d'oeuvres laid out in the boat's elegant and comfortable cockpit.
My grandfather designed and built the boat with his family back in 1934. It is exactly the same boat that Hemingway built, or that our family built for Hemingway. In fact, Hemingway used to sleep on this bench. That's where he sat. It's long enough for him, and every dimension of the outside of the boat is exactly the same. It must have been about 10 years ago, I guess, when Hillary Hemingway, who I didn't know, called me out of nowhere. And she said, well, you're Wes Wheeler? I said, I am. And she said, you're the son or the grandson of Wesley Wheeler that built the boat for Ernest Hemingway. And I said, yep, that's right. And she said, well, just stay there where you are. 10 minutes from now, you're going to get a call from Andy Garcia. And I actually had to ask my wife who that was. And then I remembered who he was. Sure enough, he called me 10 minutes later and said, are you Wes? And I said, yep. He says, I'm making a movie and I'm looking for a real Wheeler that looks just like PILAR. And the movie, I want it to be authentic, and I want to find a real one, not a replica, not a fake. And so I went to work, found him a boat. And we spent about a year renovating the boat, rebuilding it. It was pretty fun, doing this for Andy and his producer, and talking to Hillary and sitting in the boat after it was renovated, telling the whole story about her uncle Ernest and how he built the boat and how he loved the boat and fished it for 25 years and how he would pull in the marlin.
Hemingway owned the PILAR for the last 27 years of his life, regularly fishing in the waters of Key West, Marquesas Keys, and the Gulf Stream along the Cuban coast. He won many fishing tournaments and established a 1938 world record when he caught 7 marlins in a single day. His 3 trips to the Bimini Islands with PILAR remain part of the local lore on the islands to this day, and his exploits also contributed to scientific research and the knowledge of Atlantic marine life, famously collaborating with the Smithsonian Institute and Henry Fowler, helping to classify the taxonomy of marlin species. The author's time on PILAR also directly influenced several of his books, perhaps most notably, The Old Man and the Sea.
I got so inspired by this whole story that a couple of months later we went to Cuba. My wife and I went to Cuba with Hillary and her family, and we got a special visa. And the boat is still sitting there on his tennis court with a big roof over the top. It's like a museum. And they let me go through the entire boat. Hillary and I actually have pictures of Hillary and I taking measurements of every single inch of the boat inside the engine room, making sure there was the same engine as the original, looking all the dimensions and all the mechanicals and the hardware. And then we came back from Cuba after that 5-day trip, and we compared all the measurements to the brochures that I do still have that didn't burn up in the fire, and it was exactly to the inch. So it was amazing. So we actually authenticated the real PILAR and said, yep, that's a Wheeler. And then I went to work to reverse engineer the boat and build this. I asked Steve when he was building the boat, I want all the modern technology. I want the best engines. And then all the technology, all the modern technology. We have a Victron electric system. It's got its own Wi-Fi system. We have a Seakeeper generator. We have air conditioning. It's all modern underneath. You just don't see it.
Wow, this is really spacious down here. I have a feeling Hemingway didn't live quite this luxuriously.
No, not at all. But we tried to be pretty accurate to the style of a 1930s feel of a boat. But yes, Hemingway would have had it geared totally for fishing. It was a fishing vessel for him, and that's what he wanted. We wanted this to be a boat for us to spend time, cruising the East Coast. And so when we thought about the design of the interior, we wanted it comfortable for entertaining, for conversation. So you can see we have like the 2 club chairs, table for eating. This actually does convert to another berth. The table goes down and we have a cushion that sets right in there.
The beautiful mahogany with the logo inset. I mean, everything, the attention to detail and the cabinetry that's been done in here is really incredible. And that was from the Brooklin Boat Yard.
Yeah, so we got the recommendation from Brooklyn for, well, we were going to use the mahogany, of course, and we did the satin stain throughout, but we also got Martha Coolidge to help us. She helped us with the design of how we wanted the cabinetry and things laid out, and also she helped us with sourcing some of the materials that you see. We really wanted it to look a bit more like a 30s interior, so I had looked at very many different brochures that the Wheeler Yacht Company had in their archives, and we wanted the pin-tucked cushions as well as, you know, just the whole ambiance of like a 1930s home in a way.
So she took your vision and interpreted it with samples and with layouts so that the drawings enabled the cabinet maker to create what you had in your mind.
Right.
After the dockside boat tour, the Wheelers offered to take us for a cruise to experience a day in the life aboard this beautiful yacht and to enjoy the magical coast of Maine, a truly stunning boating area. They showed our crew some of the natural beauty of the region, and we learned a bit more about the performance and handling of the boat firsthand. It turns out that both Wes and Marianne are also experienced sailors, and they mentioned they had some sailor friends participating in the Eggemoggin Reach Regatta that day, suggesting we go watch the sailboat race up close. That sounded like a great idea to us, so we made our way slowly over to the boats on the horizon.
Originally organized in 1985 by Steve White and Frank Hull, the Eggemoggin Reach Regatta is open to wooden sailboats only, with a 15-mile course through some of the most breathtaking coastal scenery in the country. It was envisioned as an opportunity for wooden boat owners to get together, compete, and enjoy each other's company in perhaps one of the most classic of wooden boat races.
Back at the docks, our crew thanked the Wheelers and said goodbye to Brooklyn, to keep exploring and see what other boating culture we could find.
A few miles down the road from the Brooklin Boat Yard is Wooden Boat School, and we've stumbled on it here. Marilyn and I just drove in, and this is an awesome place. It was founded in 1981 as an extension actually of WoodenBoat Magazine. It's a place for people to come meet up and learn about how to build old world style classic wooden boats. This is the classroom. It's a Saturday, so nobody's here right now, but on Monday, class will be in session and there's 70 students coming in. We're gonna walk through the grounds and see some of the wooden boats in various phases of completion.
Seeing all the notes from the students is so amazing, looking at how much they enjoyed what they did here.
Yeah.
Sneak in here?
Yeah, let's do it.
Nobody ever broke into school.
A sought-after resource and destination for aspiring wooden boat builders. There are over 90 courses at the school, ranging from blacksmithing to seamanship, woodworking, and model making. Classes are comprised of eager students building everything from kayaks and sailboats to dories.
Like this, and come out more, out. Right there. Oh, I hope it's
This 64-acre campus is open to students and the public and exudes old-world charm from its wood-burning stove and old wood crafting tools to the many souvenirs left by graduating classes.
Next up, we drove over to meet an old friend of mine that I'd sailed with years ago, who captains a Windjammer tall ship out of the picturesque town of Camden, Maine.
Maine windjammer cruising has been a popular tradition here for decades, with the term windjammer now nearly synonymous with Maine. These types of boats are traditionally rigged sailing vessels. Unlike larger cruise ships, windjammers have cozier berths on board with shared bunk rooms and heads, so a trip on this type of boat is a close quarters affair that makes for great camaraderie.
All right, guys, I'm here with Captain Dennis Gallant on board his boat, the Angelique. And this is a windjammer, right?
Yes, yeah, Angelique's a 130-foot overall gaff rig catch.
What's unique to Maine about the windjammer trade and the culture here?
So the windjammer started here in 1936, and when we started, it was really, they called them dude schooners. You know, you go to a dude ranch to pretend to be a cowboy, you go out on the dude schooner to pretend to be a sailor. We call it kind of glamping at sea, it's glamour camping. Yeah. And it's unique to Maine. We have thousands of islands out there. We're sailing in these protected waters. There are 9 boats in the Maine Windjammer Association that I'm a part of. There's 1 ketch, 1 3-masted schooner, and then 7 2-masted schooners.
Okay.
Yeah. Schooner has the taller mast is in the back, and the ketch, the taller mast is in the front.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And the shorter mast, the mizzen, is in front of the rudder post. If it's behind the rudder post, it's a yawl.
Oh yeah, okay.
Originally, it started out as this derogatory term. You know, when the steam tugs started to come along, and the steamships started to come along, you know, they were looking down on the guys that were still running the sailboats. You know, you windjammer, we'll see you in Boston in a week, and off they'd go. And the reply was, you stupid stinkpot. Right. And we know they still call sailboats, you know, windjammers up here. Windjamming is what we do.
Yeah.
You know, we take people out, we go sailing. Angelique was built in 1980, so she's one of the newer boats in the fleet. And when she started sailing in 1980, she was kind of an outcast. She was the only ketch in the fleet, the rest are all schooners. She was the only steel boat in the fleet, and she was one of only 2 boats with red sails. She's since kind of been really accepted into the group as part of this thing.
Angelique's red sails are period correct, as it was common to treat sails to make the cotton canvas more resilient to mildew with tallow, tannic acid, and red ochre. She is 130 feet long overall with a 95-foot deck and a deep draft hull, with a 23-foot beam and a full keel that assures maximum stability, even in rough water. The wood decks, booms, and interiors give voyagers the old-world charm of yesteryear while enjoying the soulful feel of Maine's quiet coast.
She draws 11.5 feet, and she weighs about 142 metric tons, light, you know, no fuel, no water. We carry 1,800 gallons of water. We can make it a nice experience for our guests, and they don't come away thinking that they've been on this rough and ready kind of trip. We can take 29 guests. 29 guests, and we have a crew of 7. Myself, a first mate, 2 deckhands, a chef, a baker, and a mess cook that does a lot of prep and dishes. Angelique's really unique too, that we have an on-deck saloon. So we have an area on deck where guests can get out of the weather and still be up on deck. We've got a piano in there. It's right next to the galley, so it's nice and warm. The galley always smells good too.
I remember hanging out in there when I think I was with you guys 4 nights or 6?
6 nights, yeah.
6
nights you sailed with me.
Yeah, and we kind of gathered in that upper saloon there.
Yeah.
That was a really cool place to hang out.
Cap told me they'd just tuned the piano up, and he said I should go tickle the ivories a bit, which I couldn't resist. Brought back memories from our cruising trip years ago. A sailboat with a piano on board makes for one of the most social boating experiences possible. People will gather around, sing along, enjoy food as they watch the sunset over the water. Few moments in life can top enjoying an evening on a tall ship in Maine with musical instruments and some adventurous friends along.
Sounds pretty good.
You won't find any place with as many islands as Maine. And we have thousands of islands on the coast of Maine. So we're sailing in these huge open bays that are sheltered from the sea. It's protected anchorages, protected sailing, and not a lot of traffic. You know, it's not unusual to sail all day and only pass a handful of other sailboats.
Yeah.
And half the time they're a windjammer.
And the classic experience of like cruising the islands out here is you anchor off an island and get on the little dinghy gunboat tender and go out to the island, right?
We have a 16-passenger rowboat, and it's a really shallow draft boat, so we can go right into the island, we can beach it, the guests get off over the bow. Most of the time they don't even get their feet wet.
Yep.
And we do go into islands like that and do an all-you-can-eat lobster bake. You probably remember that when you were on board. Yeah, it's a
awesome.
highlight of the trip. We go in and light a big fire and cook about 80 pounds of lobster.
Yeah.
And we do stop at villages. So
Yeah, I remember we did Castine, I think.
Castine's a big one. Stonington's another place we go.
And Stonington's like the lobstering capital.
Stonington's the lobstering capital of the United States of America. They land more pounds of lobster in Stonington than any place else in the country.
Do you eat lobster being from Maine?
I do. I don't eat it every time, but I'll often do the surf and turf. I'll have my lobster and then I'll have my hamburger.
Yeah.
So, surf and turf it.
I remember you had a chef on board named Hoppy the time
Yeah,
I was here, and
yeah.
he showed me how the galley, and based on where you're tacking, you have to open and close different pipes.
Yeah, the food, I always try to hire chefs that are into a little exploration. I want someone that's gonna write a good menu. And we have everything from rabbit to steak to lobster to oysters and clam chowder, and I never know what he's gonna make us. It's kind of fun.
That's awesome. All right, everyone, we're climbing down the ladder to go below deck and check out some of the accommodations. It's bunk style. Everybody has their own private sink in their rooms, and then the shower is a stand-up shower. It's pretty comfortable. A little bit like glamping.
SailAngelique.com. If you call the phone number, you're gonna get me or you're gonna get my wife. We are truly mom and pop, and all 9 boats in the association. The owner's going to be on board in every one of these boats. So that's really, really unique, I think.
Well, thanks for having us.
Hey, it's really a pleasure. It's good to see you again, too.
Yeah, you too.
Excellent.
Cool.
Excellent.
The city of Portland, Maine is Maine's leading port and economic center. Situated on a peninsula that extends into Casco Bay, Portland thrived in the 18th century, partly due to the lumber trade. Many shipmasts came from the state's virgin trees. Known for its lively nightlife, cobblestone streets, and fishing piers. This thriving seaside city is home to a bustling lobstering industry and boating community.
I wanted to learn more about lobstering and lobster boats, so we headed to Bar Harbor on Mount Desert Island, the largest island in Maine, home to Acadia National Park. Known as the crown jewel of the North Atlantic coast, Acadia is one of the top 10 most visited national parks in the country, and its dramatic terrain showcases the erosive power of the ocean, with mighty waves constantly crashing high over its rocky shoreline.
Lobstering is a beloved Maine pastime that got its start with local fishing families in the late 1700s. 75% of Maine's commercial fishery value lies in lobster, with lobster fishers hauling in hundreds of millions of dollars each year.
So I see this is the Lulu. You must be Dallas.
Yes, sir, I am. How you doing?
Good, how are you?
Not bad.
Permission to hop aboard?
Sure, come aboard.
Cool. So you basically take people on kind of like a real life exploration of what it's like to be a lobsterman here.
Exactly, yeah, it's 2 hours dock to dock. We do go 2 miles offshore, go to a lighthouse, we check out seals, some nature. We come back in, we demonstrate lobstering on the way back in by hauling traps and talking all about it.
Okay. And lobstering is the family business?
It is. My grandfather did it, my father did it, and now I'm a lobsterman. Born and raised right here, Bar Harbor, Maine. I grew up fishing since I was about that high.
What is life like here as a lobsterman?
You have to want to do it, and you get out of it what you put into it. It's pretty dangerous. It's not like you're down south where if you fall in, you can hang out in the water for a while. I mean, even though it's 60 degrees, that doesn't give you much time for hypothermia. You'll know it if you jump in that water. You'll be flailing around, we'd be pulling you out with you screaming.
Yeah.
It's pretty cold.
Yeah. That's why I was surprised we saw those kids swimming the other day. They had the
They tough it out.
Yeah. Did you swim as a kid growing up here?
I did. I remember jumping off that pier.
Really?
And as soon as I hit the water, thinking of nothing else except climbing up that ladder and getting the heck out of there.
Yeah, just a shock, right?
Yeah.
I swam in Maine actually as a kid too. I remember it being super cold. What do people look for in a lobster boat? Like, right, for people that don't know about boats, like what are some features of a good lobster boat?
For one, that it starts up. It doesn't break down all the time.
Right.
You need something reliable that is going to get you through the season without too much maintenance. Because you miss one day of fishing, that sets you behind.
Yep.
You know, you're counting on this time. You basically have between June and November to make it happen.
Yeah.
So you want something reliable, something seaworthy, comfortable. I mean, you can have all the bells and whistles, but it comes down to that engine needs to run and that hauler needs to turn.
Yeah.
Lift the traps up.
Yeah.
So.
And I mean, obviously they're all pretty much inboard boats, of course.
Yep. For example, this one has a 500 horse Cummins engine in it, single screw propeller.
Are lobster boats pretty much all single screw or
Yeah.
twin? Yeah.
Yep.
Okay.
They're all single screw.
Does that make them kind of hard to handle and dock and?
No, you get comfortable with it, experience, and you learn how to navigate in through everything and how the boat responds. You know, every boat's different.
Yep.
Some wheels, propellers turn to the right, some turn to the left, so there's different characteristics.
Gotcha.
You just get used to it.
Can you tell me about the boat we're on, the Lulu?
Yeah, it's a 42-foot boat, very solid boat, very rugged. If you were to take all these seats and everything and this house off, you would have a awesome lobster boat.
Yeah.
It's a 42-foot boat, and a lot of those boats out in the harbor are the same size.
Okay.
This time of year, while it's calm out, you have your reliable boat, you better be working to make those days count.
Right.
People with the bigger boats like this will get a federal permit and go way offshore and fish through the winter.
Okay.
But most guys around here will pick up their traps come November, put them on the bank, do maintenance all winter until next year.
So they got to make all their money during the
Yeah,
season.
it's a tight window.
Yeah.
That's why reliability, wake up and go.
Yeah.
As much as you can, as hard as you can. In the fall, you'll start seeing more like 20, 30 knot wind. There's a lot of current in different places. 12-foot tides.
12-foot tides.
Yep. So you have to account for that when you set out your line with your buoy on it.
Yeah.
Because if you're just going straight up and down, that current's gonna haul your buoy down underwater.
Right, and then
So you
people
put
hit
more,
it and
So you put more scope on it and double buoys up to take the strain off of the pickup buoy.
Okay.
And when you go to set the trap, you push the trap over and all that line runs off the stern. All that rope spools up at your feet.
Yeah.
Well, there's a lot of stuff going on, a lot of situational awareness. If you're not paying attention and you step in one of those loops, it'll wrap around your boot and haul you right to the stern.
Right.
So you either put a knife in the stern somewhere that you might be able to catch, or carry something like that so you can cut yourself free of the rope.
Yep. Or both.
Or both.
Yeah.
Maine lobsters are fished with baited traps or pots that are lowered from the boat and set into place with a trap line attached to a floating buoy that marks the location, each one painted a specific color registered to that lobster fisher. The traps soak in the water for 2 to 3 days and are then pulled back up using a gaff hook to snag the buoy and attach the line to a hydraulic trap hauler that reels up the catch from the ocean floor. In order to be legal to keep, a lobster must measure over 3 1/4 inches from the eyes to the beginning of the tail and less than 5 inches long, or they must be thrown back in order to protect and conserve the fishery. Lobsters of legal size generally weigh between 1 pound to 4 pounds, with most coming in around 1 1/4 pounds.
You were telling me about this buoy. Can I grab this buoy?
Sure.
So, what's special about this?
What's special about it is the time and effort that went into it.
Yeah.
This was my grandfather's buoy. It fished these waters about 50, 60 years ago. Back then, they didn't have a store that they could just run and get all the parts to build the new styrofoam type buoys.
Yeah.
He actually would go out into the woods, cut down a cedar tree, cut it to shape, carve it down, bore the hole, cut down an oak tree to make the spindle, drive that in, then paint it.
Nice.
The amount of time that went into it makes it a lot more precious than the buoys are today.
Yeah. 60 years old?
Yeah, that was probably in the water 50, 60 years ago.
Cool. That's about the same age as the Mustang. You know, a lot of people don't realize, like Boat Trader, of course there's yachts for sale, new boats, used boats, but there's actually, you could buy ferry boats, cruise ships, you can even buy lobster boats on Boat Trader.
Oh, right on.
Yeah, so.
Maybe I'll list mine on there someday.
Yeah, exactly,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, when you're ready to get another one. But if anybody wants to get into lobstering, you can buy lobster boats on Boat Trader too. Well, thanks for having us on board.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Pleasure meeting you.
Appreciate it. Yeah, you too.
We found out we could sample the lobster from Dallas and his crew's boats over at nearby Sea Ray's Lobster Shack. And naturally, we headed over to do some research.
Little culinary time out here. We're gonna try some real authentic Maine lobster. Marilyn, do you like lobster?
I am a lobster girl, and if they have steamers, I will be in New England heaven.
All right, fresh off the boat. Let's go check it out.
Let's go. I'm ready.
Cheers.
Cheers. There's a technique to this. Yeah, crack a little here, a little here, and then when you pull this whole claw out in one piece, and that's a thing of beauty. That is so good, and that's why they tell you to wear bibs.
Another Maine staple, blueberry soda. Maine blueberries are no joke. Wanna try it?
Well, I went for the Portland Pale Ale. I figured we'll keep it in the state. And cheers.
Cheers.
After exploring the lobstering industry and the workboats used for hauling in Maine's most popular catch, it's easy to see how lobster boats have inspired the Downeast style of many private motor yachts built in New England. Sometimes even referred to as lobster yachts, Downeast yachts have a low profile with a raised V-shaped bow and long sheer lines reminiscent of their workboat ancestors, but with a more refined yacht-like elegance. We couldn't come to Maine and talk about boat building without talking about Hinckley Yachts, one of America's oldest boat builders. Hinckley has deep roots in the area, going back to 1928, when Henry Hinckley founded the yard and began servicing lobster boats and private yachts for residents of Mount Desert Island. The company now builds around 50 boats a year, working closely with owners to craft the vessel of their dreams.
So, you guys are spraying topside today? Yeah, topside. The first duty of a boat is to be beautiful. What I wanted to build was a boat that was beautiful. I wanted a boat to be built from the outside first, and then you saw what you could get into it. Hinckley boats always distinguish themselves. Something that you look at it, it's beautiful. When you walk down on the dock or you look out on the float, you can say, wow. You know, what we wanted the boat to represent was a sense of fun and excitement and just breaking beyond any mission or destination. The reason you go on a picnic is you want to be outside, you want to enjoy yourself, you want to be free of the restraints of the walls of a house. It conjures up some excitement, maybe a little hint of something romantic.
Hinckley single-handedly created the entire picnic boat class. Downeast-style open-air express yachts, designed primarily for relaxing and entertaining with spacious open decks, comfortable seating, and superior visibility, providing passengers a true sense of connection to the environment. In addition to picnic boats, Hinckley has mastered the art of constructing private motor yachts ideal for coastal cruising, perhaps most notably on their Talaria line. The attention to detail and dedication to quality that goes into building these yachts exemplifies the fine craftsmanship and revered work ethic of Maine boat builders. After exploring coastal Maine and its laid-back Downeast lifestyle, it's no wonder why so many who visit and who call it home say that the region offers a glimpse into the way life should be. Standing on the shore, peering out past the many rocky nooks and crannies of the coast to the endless sea beyond, it feels as though one could easily ride out to the edge of the world.
All right, everyone, this is Ryan with Boat Trader, and thanks for joining us for another episode of Stomping Grounds, the show where we explore boat culture in America. I'm not quite sure where we're headed next, but it might be your town. So if you've got a cool boating story, give us a shout, let us know. Maybe we'll come to your neck of the woods. For now, signing off. We'll see you next time.
What's your stomping grounds? Follow us at youtube.com/boattrader or on Instagram and Facebook to share your boating stories for a chance to be featured. Who knows? Maybe we'll come to your neighborhood next. This is Boat Trader's Stomping Grounds.